I'm really not the type of sewist who buys every new sewing gadget out there. I have accumulated a few little novelty items through advent calendars and that sort of thing, but there are tools that I keep going to over and over again. And in today's video, I'm going to talk to you about the 8 tools that, although not essential, are ones that I would definitely buy again. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Izzy, and on this channel I love to talk about all things sewing as I learn to make myself a polished, understated, and fun me-made wardrobe. Alright, so the 8 tools that, although are not essential and may not be part of your starting kit if you're just getting into sewing, they are tools that I've learned make my sewing life a lot easier, a lot faster. So yeah, I'm just going to go through the list because as I'm filming and as you're watching this, we are very close to the holidays. We're very close to Black Friday. So if anything on this list tickles your fancy and you want to look for a deal, at least you'll have your list. They would also be great gift ideas for the people in your life who don't know what to get you this holiday season. Some of the links down in the description box will be affiliate links, which means I earn a very small commission if you end up buying an item from one of those links, but there is no additional cost to you. All right, so let's go into the very first tool, and that is a rotary cutter. Now, I know that I could definitely use scissors to cut out my fabric, but I have been a quilter for years and years and years and have used rotary cutters to cut my quilting fabric for years. I'm also using rotary cutters to cut my fashion fabric when I'm garment making, just because I find it's faster, it's easier. I just never quite got the hang of the scissors without, having them shift my fabric. I love to use pattern weights when I'm cutting out my fabric instead of having to pin everything. So rotary cutters are just easier for me. I love them in 2 sizes. So the bigger one, which is 45mm blade, is amazing for larger pieces, for thicker fabric. I use this one for quilting. I love the color. You don't need to have a fancy rotary cutter. I do prefer the Olfas, and I do prefer these straight, very basic ones. I've tried the ergonomic ones, and I keep just going back to this one. I also have the 28mm blades from Olfa. This is great for sharp curves, little corners. I also use this, don't tell anybody, to cut out my notches. So very, very carefully, I try to just cut a little bit of the notches instead of having to get my scissors out for those. But that's a bit of a cheat and can be dangerous if your seam allowance is very, very small. So yeah, proceed with care. But definitely these 2 I could not live without. Are they essential? No, I could cut my fabric with scissors, but they make things so much quicker for me. And yeah, just a couple of small things. If you are gonna go with rotary cutters, just please be careful. Always close the blade when you put them down. Go slow, get your fingers out of the way. I have chopped off a significant amount of my thumb one time because I was being careless. So yeah, be careful. Also, get some replacement blades. A sharp rotary cutting blade is essential to get nice, clean cuts and not having to kind of jerk your way through the fabric. So yeah, rotary cutters in 2 sizes and plenty of replacement blades. Now, if you're going to get yourself some rotary cutters, you are going to need a cutting mat. So they exist in a variety of sizes. If there's one size that I would suggest you get is a 24-inch by 36-inch if you are a garment maker. this would be the minimal size for me. You can fit a top on that size. You can fit a lot of different garments or pattern pieces on that size. The only thing you might not be able to fit on there are pants. Now, I make a lot of pants, so on my cutting table, I had room for 2 cutting mats. One is 24 by 36, the other one is 24 by 18, and together, butted up against each other, are the perfect size for cutting really long pattern pieces. The one I have are Fiskars. I love them. They work really, really well, and you'll be able to see on the clip that I insert here that they are well loved and well used. They are now stained, but I've had them for years and years and years, and yeah, love them. One tip, if you end up getting a mat, is make sure that you store it flat. Keep it away from heat, including sunshine, because they will warp if they're not stored completely flat. So if I'm not using my cutting table, or if I need my cutting table for something else, I store my mat under my table on the ground where it's going to be flat. You can store it under a bed, under a sofa, depending on whether or not you've got your own sewing room. But definitely don't store it leaned up against a wall. It'll eventually start curling. And yeah, you don't want that, because you really need your mat to be absolutely flat when cutting out your fabric. So that is tool or essential tool for me, number 2. Now let's talk ironing. Now, if you're going to be sewing anything, quilting, garments, whatever, you need a good steam iron. That is a non-negotiable. Your clothes will look very professional and are going to look much better if you have a good iron and you iron all your seams or press your seams as you go. Same for quilting. You can't make a quilt if you don't have a good iron. My thing is, I want a cordless iron. I have tried many different makes, different brands with the cords, the retractable cords, the whole bit. I just cannot use a corded iron. They drive me crazy. I've also tried a few, or at least one, very expensive brand that ended up leaking all over my fabric. So I've gone back to basics, and I've had this iron, my gosh, probably close to 8 years now. And it is the Panasonic, oh, there's the name, Cordless. Now it has this really cool protector, or let's see if I can get it off, which allows you to keep the dust off of it. There we go. And then it basically rests on this cradle here, and all you need to do to use it is take it off and then put it back down, and it continues charging as it rests inside its cradle. It does have a cord here that is fully retractable. It has steam. It's got a pointy end on both ends, which is really cool for opening seams, that kind of thing. The water reservoir is small. That is my one little beef with this iron. The water quantity you can put in here to get really good steam is very small. Now, funny enough, and just to show that this is something I would definitely buy again, this amazing iron, after 7 or 8 years of almost daily use, has died on me. It died in the middle of making for market, which was, yeah, a little bit of a panic moment for me. But I've already ordered a new one. It's the exact same make, exact same model, and it's supposed to come today. So yeah, definitely recommend. It's got the auto shut off, which is, I think, 15 minutes. It gets fairly hot fairly quickly, and the steam is really, really good. So highly recommend this. The price point on this iron is about 120 Canadian, and if you buy it during the Black Friday sales, it's probably going to be a little bit less than that. But yeah, highly recommend this Panasonic iron. Love it. Yeah, no issues whatsoever in terms of quality, and like I said, the price point is a lot better than those really expensive irons that end up leaking all over your fabric. The next tool that I really could not live without is a tailor's ham. Now you'll notice the condition of my ham is pretty pathetic. You can blame Bear, my cat, for this. When he was a kitten, he really took a liking to my ham. So it's full of scratches, full of holes. I really should replace it. But yeah, love this for pressing curved seams, for pressing bust darts. Yeah, really could not live without it. Could you use like a rolled up towel or something like that? Probably, but I found that I use this so much, well worth the investment or the price. It's got, I think it's a wool on this side, cotton on this side. It's really like stuffed, like it's hard to the touch. I have seen though patterns out there for making your own. So if you don't want to buy one, you feel like you could make one, then definitely you can Google for ham or tailor's ham patterns. But yeah, love mine, and have been using it almost for every single garment I sew. Like I said, bust darts, curved seams, like a princess seam, for example. When you want to press the shoulder seams, you wrap it around this and just gently press your seam to one side. This is, yeah, it has been a game changer in my sewing practice. So highly recommend a tailor's ham. And to go alongside the ham for a more pressing tools, I highly recommend you get yourself a clapper. A clapper is one of these things. So it's a piece of wood, basically, that allows you to press your seams very flat. So what this wood basically does is you put steam on your seam, you put the clapper on top of your seam, and the wood basically absorbs the heat and sets your seam really flat. This is fabulous if you're sewing with wool, for example, if you're sewing with like thicker material. Yeah, I absolutely love my clapper, and although it is definitely not an essential tool, I don't think I could live without my clapper, because I'm about to jump into coat making with wool, and I know I'm going to use this on every single seam I press. So yeah, this one, if I remember correctly, and I'm going to link to it, is from Core Fabrics here in Montreal, but you can find clappers at every price point, pretty much everywhere. But yeah, highly recommend you get yourself a clapper. If sewing with wool or thicker material is something you like to do, yeah, stop fighting with those seams to get them to lay flat and get yourself one of these. Tool number 6, you can see behind me, all along my wall here, is a thread rack. So in this sewing room, there are no windows. I'm in a basement, so I get no sunshine. So I can have my threads out. And the advantage of me having my threads out is that I can see at a glance what colors I have and what the gaps are. I try to store them in like color order, so put all my whites together or white-ish together, my browns, my purples, my pinks, all of that good stuff. So that if I'm down here ordering fabric online, I can easily see what I have and don't have. So there's nothing worse than having to sift through a drawer full of spool threads and finding just the right one or seeing if you have the right one. So I know there are also boxes you could get which are also really, really good, but you need to figure out a good storage system for your thread so that you don't buy duplicates. So, you know, buy a thread color that you already own, and so that they also stay and don't get all tangled, like they stay nice and neat and tidy and don't get your threads all tangled. I have racks for my cotton thread, or one rack for my cotton thread, which is right here, and then the rest are Gutermann polyester thread. And right off camera, you can't see it, but over here I have specialty threads like top stitching, that kind of thing. So I like to keep my thread spools really, really organized, and that way at a glance I see everything I have. But yeah, get yourself something that would allow you to store your thread so that your spools don't get damaged, nothing gets all tangled, and you get to see what you have. Now, while we're on the topic of thread storage, you might be able to see that there's no room on those pegs for storing the bobbin that has the same thread as the spool that I have on my rack. So I got myself some bobbin cases or bobbin trays that I keep near my machine, and I absolutely love this thing. The cover is see-through. I can see at a glance what color is in here. It keeps the bobbins from getting all untangled or I don't even know what the word is, but you know what I mean. These are super inexpensive. I got these on Amazon. I've got 3 of them. So I've got one for my Gutermann, you know, garment making thread bobbins. I've got one for my quilting sewing machine bobbins. So yeah, so this allows me to keep all of my bobbin threads organized. And again, I get to see, before I wind a new bobbin, I get to see if I already have a color that I could work with. So yeah, very, very cool. I got the first one of these ever in an advent calendar, if I remember correctly. Loved it so much. I went on Amazon and bought 2 more. So yeah, I would not store my bobbins any other way. Love this thing. And finally, one tool that, you know, is essential, but you know, a lot of people just buy very, very cheap, inexpensive pins, and I like glass head pins. So just to give you a quick look how pretty that is. Oop, one just fell on the floor. So getting yourself some good pins really is essential, especially if you're making garments, like a very, you know, delicate viscose fabric or rayon fabric. If you're sewing with silk, you will want to get yourself some nice, sharp, thin pins. Now, my preferred ones are the ones with the glass head, because if it's glass, you can press on top of them, you know, whereas plastic pins, obviously, you don't want to put heat on those. So it's much easier, for example, if you're trying to hem something, to turn up the hem, place a pin, and then press, and that way everything stays put. And yeah, so highly recommend you get yourself some really, really good pins, especially if you're getting into garment sewing and you're going to want to sew with pretty delicate fabric. Definitely don't recommend using those really thick quilting pins for garment sewing. I've tried it at the very beginning when I first got back into garment sewing. All I had were quilting pins in my sewing room, and yeah, snags. Yeah, they're, you know, they lose their sharpness after a while. So, and that's the other thing. Pins are not that expensive, so as you can feel your pins getting duller, so it's more difficult to put them inside the fabric, just get rid of them and replace your pins on a regular basis to make sure that they are super sharp and just glide inside the fabric. So there you go. Those are the 8 sewing tools that, although not absolutely essential in a sewing room, I feel make my life a lot easier, allow me to sew faster. Yeah, I would definitely recommend them. I would buy them again. So yeah, encourage you to have a look at one or some of them if you don't have them already. Now, I'm sure those 8 tools are not the only ones that some of you would consider essential. So what tool, not on my list, do you consider to be an essential tool in your sewing room? Please let us all know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a like on your way out. Consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks again, and I will see you soon.